Hello, my name is Joseph Rittenhouse. I'm in Jinhua, China. Jinhua is about an hour away from the eastern coast of China. I just read this book, Punished by Rewards, by Alfie Kohn, K-O-H-N. This is a good book for students, teachers, and school administrators to read. Parents could also benefit from it. I also recommend this book to employees, supervisors, managers, and CEOs. They would benefit from this book. One of the reasons why I read this book is because my business is real estate. I'm a property investor. I retired when I was 36 years old, but what is fascinating and fun to me is psychology, learning and education, motivation, and culture, things like that. So for me, I'm fascinated with, as I learn more about wealth and financial independence, I've been fascinated with why some people act and don't act, and how do you encourage or discourage behavior in humans. That's why I read this book. You may have heard about a psychologist called B.F. Skinner. His theory on human behavior is behaviorism. So his idea of animals as well as humans is that by using incentives, by giving rewards or taking rewards away, you can control the behavior of an organism, of a person or of an animal. And someone like B.F. Skinner would break people down all the way to say that you could almost control a human completely just by giving them rewards or taking rewards away. Why would we want to have something like this? Well, the idea is that if you want to create good citizens, you would want to control the behavior of students. You'd want to encourage certain behaviors, reward them for those. You'd also want to discourage other behaviors by not giving rewards. Also, employees, you would want to give rewards for good, productive behavior, but if they're unproductive and disruptive, you would take away rewards. So that's the whole idea between giving or taking away rewards, is how can we use behaviorism to control and influence human behavior. And Mr. Kohn, he's actually talking about how there's much more to it than that, and you can't break it down to just giving rewards or taking rewards away. It's not that simple. It's actually disrespectful to say that there's nothing in it for a person other than they just want a reward, and they have no motivation outside of just getting a reward of money or food or gifts or something like that. You're probably wondering why he called the book Punished by Rewards. It's kind of an interesting thing to say, paradoxical. Think about it this way. Anytime you introduce a reward into an environment, now a bunch of people bring a reward into this environment, there's the people that get the reward or the person that gets the reward, but the people that don't get it, that's also saying something. That's also a statement saying that you weren't good enough. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. So whenever you bring a reward into an environment, you're rewarding some, but you're also punishing other people. The problem with bringing rewards, incentives into an environment is you take away people's sense of autonomy, of self-direction. Because once I start dangling a reward in the workplace or in the classroom, the students quickly learn the best thing you could do, the most efficient thing you could do is find the quickest, fastest way to do what the teacher wants me to do. The quickest, fastest thing I could do to do what my boss wants. Deep down inside, you lose a sense of self-direction because part of you realizes that you're just doing what you need to do to get what someone else is going to give you. So you lose that intrinsic sense of happiness. You also lose the intrinsic motivation because you don't have a feeling of you're on your own now. You don't have a feeling of let me show people what I can do. You have a feeling of I'm going to do whatever this other person wants me to do so I can get what they're giving me. You also start to screw with things like novel, creative thinking. People learn to don't take chances anymore. If you take a chance, you might not get the reward. If you do something that doesn't work, you might not get the reward. So people over time, they learn to just do the minimum amount of work that's required to get the reward. It also teaches them to be repetitive. Each time you come to class, each time you come to school, just do the minimum amount of work that's required of you to get the reward. Not only are we teaching people to do the least amount of work required in the fastest amount of time to get the desired reward, think of another pattern that we create here. When a child is born, the mother and father tell it, do this, don't do that. If you do what I want you to do, you're going to get a reward. If you don't do what I want you to do, you're not going to get a reward. It's kind of lazy parenting. Parents are tired, they're worn out from work, so they just say, do this, don't do that. I'm not going to spend any time and energy to explain to you why. So the kid just learns to kind of give up. I'm just a kid. I don't have any say in anything that goes on around here. I just do what my mom and dad tell me to do. Then we send them to school. You better do good in elementary school and junior high so you get into a good high school. In some countries, I've heard they even have a competition to get into the high schools. So you better do good in elementary and junior high so you get into a good high school. You better get into a good high school so you get into a good college. You better do what your professors tell you to do, write the way they want you to write so that you get into a good career. You better do what your boss tells you to do, what your boss wants you to do, so that you keep getting your paycheck and your raises so that you can go buy the houses and the boats and the cars that you want. So you see the dangerous pattern that we set up here. We teach people from a very young age to just give up, just learn what you need to do to get to the next level. Don't try to do anything too creative. Give up your autonomy. Don't try too hard. Just do the minimum amount of work to go up. Let's look at the classroom. Some other dynamics that start to happen in the classroom when you put rewards in the classroom. First of all, let me go off on a side note here. In my own personal life, my success came from finding other people that were smarter than me and copying them and learning from them and cooperating with them. It came from asking questions and asking for help from other people. Let's look at one thing that they teach us in school. Here's another paradox. The very thing they teach us in school is not the thing that you're going to use in the real world. In school, they teach you to don't cheat. In school, it's called cheating. In real life, it's called cooperating. In real life, you should be cheating all day long. You should be saying, can anyone help me? Can I see what you did? Can I work with you? So what they teach us in school is completely the opposite of what we'll actually need in the real world. They teach us to not work with other people. They teach us sit quietly. I don't want to see what the person next to you is doing. I want to see what you're doing on your paper. Don't talk and sit quietly. And these are the very things that we're going to need when we get out into the real world. We're going to need to cooperate with other people, to speak up, to be creative, to get into groups and to get into teams. So they actually teach us the opposite of what we need in the real life and the real world. So we spend all these years in school, here's your reward, here's not your reward, here's a reward, here's not your reward, and then we push them off the edge from high school into society, or after college we push them out into the society, and we're like, come on, why can't you make decisions for yourself? Come on, why can't you work with other people? Well, it's no surprise. All these years you were not teaching them how to cooperate. You were not teaching them how to communicate with the teacher and make decisions about the curriculum. The mom and dad weren't communicating with the child. They weren't asking for input from the child. They were just telling the child, do this, don't do that. And then when we got into school, the teachers were just saying, do this, don't do that. Teachers use rewards and punishment to do things such as, if the whole class does this, we will all get a reward, a pizza party, something like that. Now what you're doing with a situation like that is you're turning all of the students against one student who screwed it up for everyone. So that's a little bit disgusting. That's a little bit manipulative. So that's what happens when you start to introduce rewards into the classroom. If you can do what I'm telling you to do, everyone's going to get a pizza party. And if one of you screws it up, I hope it's not you, we're going to get the pizza party. We've already talked about how rewards can discourage creativity and novel thinking and risk-taking. The students have even gotten to the point where they just come to class. Let's talk about like college students and maybe high school students. They know the very first thing to ask on the first day is, what is the test going to be about? What do I really have to read to pass the test? And then they make their mental plan of, okay, I'm not going to need that, I'm not going to need that. I just need to do this one thing to get straight to the goal, which is a good grade. Even some students will drop more difficult classes, not take more difficult classes, so they can just get the minimum required high grade and move on. Speaking of my own life, I became very good at taking tests. I became like an expert at test taking. I even knew how many days of study I needed before a test to take a test. Say for example, I had a test in anthropology, the book would sit there. I would focus on another class completely because I knew I'd flip through it and I'd say I could read this material in about a week before the very first test. So for 2-3 weeks I would just leave the book there, wouldn't even read it at all. I'd even go to class and sit there, not pay attention because I'm thinking about another class. Test is coming up in anthropology, get that book out, flip through the pages real fast, cram through it for 2 days, prepare for the test, take a test, pass it, forget it all. So as a college student, I learned to become a very good test taker. I knew how to work with my memory. I knew what things I needed to stand outside the door. We're about to take a test, I'd stand outside the door, memorize all my 1, 2, 3, ABC, my acronyms, my abbreviations. I'd get in to take the test, I'd write down all my abbreviations on the paper or something like that so I wouldn't forget them. I'd dump everything out of my brain, start taking the test. If I was trying to remember that one difficult acronym or abbreviation, I'd look over and I'd have it there written on the paper. Like, I became so good at taking tests, so good at taking multiple choice tests, so good at open-ended questions. I knew how to do just the minimum amount of work necessary to pass a test. So we have to ask ourselves, is this what we really want? Do we want people who do just the minimum amount of work in order to get the grade? Looking at the work environment, it's kind of a similar thing, but instead of grades and certificates, now we're talking about paychecks and raises. I think a lot of the reason why employees are not happy is because they're not being fully used. They're not being fully utilized or even respected. And what I mean by respect is that employees can do a lot, but when you give them a menial job to do that's repetitive, you don't let them learn about other departments. You don't let them try different things. You don't move them around sometimes to see if they can maybe do another job in the company better. You start to create a sense of just come to work, show up on time, don't talk, do the minimum amount of work required to get the paycheck. And it's not about money. Going off on another tangent about my last job as well. I did retire when I was 36 years old. I left my job, and actually I really liked my job. It was education. I loved it a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was fun. Like, the money was enough. I was already making $70,000 a year. Really, that's enough for me. I was gonna leave anyway because I wanted to learn more about real estate and grow more real estate. But let's say, what could they have dangled in front of me to keep me at that job if they really wanted to keep me? If they wanted to, like, use rewards to keep me there? Well, it wouldn't have been money necessarily. What they could have used to get me to stay at my job would have been things from the inside. It would have been things like, you know, Joe, you've been a trainer and you've been a bus driver, but would you like to learn about the maintenance department? Would you like to learn more about the meetings that we have with the other cities, that our city has with other cities? Would you like to go downtown and see what it's like when everyone from the county gets together downtown? Or, Joe, would you like to spend some more time in HR learning more about benefits, about health insurance, about the hiring process, things like this? And actually that might have kept me around. Why? Because it would have been playing off of my just intrinsic motivation to want to show people, yes, I can do this too. I'm not just a good trainer. I can do many other things too. Give me a chance, I will show you. And I'm not just a bus driver. I can do other things too. I have a lot of knowledge. I was even actually willing to, I was trying to figure out how to do it. I was even going to use one of my vacation weeks or 2 weeks. I had this idea to go to Japan because I wanted to be a better instructor. So I would have done it for free on my vacation time. I would have gone to Japan to try to be with their bus drivers and their bus trainers so that I could learn how to be a better bus driver. I would have loved to do that. I would have done it for free. I would have done it in a heartbeat. So the idea there is that it wasn't money that would have motivated me or encouraged me. It would have been just the intrinsic motivation of wanting to show people what I'm capable of, that I can do a lot. I can do many things if you'll give me a chance to do it. But when you have rewards such as money, paychecks, gold stars and things like that, you actually kill motivation. One of the worst things you can do with a child is to give them a reward for something that they already enjoy. now you've killed the joy in it. Now you've made it to where they do the thing they love just to get a reward. There's a lot of things he talks about in the book, a lot of research, different experiments that will explain different scenarios like that, where once you introduce a reward, you actually decrease the employee's productivity, and once you introduce a reward, you actually decrease the child's love of what they're doing. Really interesting book. I had 17 pages of notes on that book. Like, when I say notes, I mean like a phrase or a statement that I thought was new and interesting. I would write it down, and I had 17 pages. So I apologize if I was rambling or repeating myself, but it was a really dense book, a really powerful book. I recommend it. It's hard. One of the points he makes, let me wrap up with this. First of all, let me talk about what's difficult and easy, and then I'll talk about his recommendations of what we could do in place of incentives and rewards. So it's hard. It's easier to just punish and reward people. I can just say, do what I want you to do. Here's your reward. I'm basically controlling you. Here, just do what I want you to do. It's easier for me to just control people and force myself on them. It's harder to explain things to people. It's harder to explain to a child why mom or dad can or can't do this, why we can or can't afford it, why I need you to do this for me. Instead of just forcing the child to do something, you can say, mom or dad need you to do this because, include them in the discussion. Let them know that you're not hiding things from them, that they are a human too, and they have opinions and they have a voice in the discussion. Show them that their opinion is valuable. It's harder to do that. It's harder for a teacher to say, I'm getting pressure politically from people above me, but we're required to do this material. Do any of you guys have any ideas of how we could best approach this? Including the students in the discussion. Letting the students feel like they are responsible, that they are capable people. That takes more work, it takes more effort. It's lazy, and it's less difficult for a parent or teacher to say, just do this or don't do that, you'll get in trouble. And same at work. It takes a little bit of creativity. It would have taken a little bit of creativity for my past employers to say, well, we really need him to train, but could we have him move to a different department for a little while and then have him go back, re-energize him with some excitement from working in a different department, and then come back, and I'll come back to training and I'll say, wow, I learned so much about maintenance. Now I'm not just a teacher. Now I'm a teacher and I know about maintenance, so I can teach my students even better. Or maybe if I spent time in HR learning about medical billing and about benefits, I would come back to my teaching position and I would be able to give my new students, I could tell them so much about benefits and about things like that. Not too much, but I could really become a better instructor. So what are the alternatives? Well, Mr. Cohn recommends things like, maybe we don't even need grades at all. Most of the time, we could do away with most of the grades. Now, okay, sure, like doctors, and airline pilots, they probably need some sort of finite testing where you either pass it or you don't pass. You get the passing grade or you don't pass. Before you start cutting people open and shooting lasers in their eyes doing surgery, we need to make sure that you, by yourself, are a step above, that you are capable on your own. Now, before you're going to go fly that multi-ton airplane, we need to make sure that you, by yourself, are capable of doing the flight on your own to be safe. Okay, things like that, yeah, you need some sort of grade or testing. But for the most part in my own life, looking back, there's little correlation between the grades I got and the evaluations I got before and how I performed later in life. I did not so well in school. Later, when we got into the real life, actually, I love school. I love learning. I'm still learning today. I'm still learning right now. I'm still reading right now. I'm still writing right now and making videos right now. While a lot of other people that got the good grades, they were only doing the minimum that was required of them to get their PhD, to become a doctor, to get the car, to get the paycheck, because they didn't really have that intrinsic motivation. But me, I was actually always a good student, but the teachers didn't work with me in the right way. So maybe we can reevaluate the whole evaluation system, the way we evaluate, why we evaluate, and do we even need to evaluate? I highly recommend the book. It's very useful for teachers, students, employees, and parents. From Jinhua, China, I'll see you in the next video.